Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. As always, he's Jason. I'm Chucky for the sports betting podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. And I'm really not sure what to talk about this week. There's this little football game that's coming up on Sunday, but yay, sportsbooks! There's a lot to talk about. I mean, we've been in prop, it's been fun. This is kind of our prop preview special, and to talk about the game a little bit. And it's a little bit the calm before the storm, but over the next kind of 48 to 72 hours, I really expect it to kind of pick up, and the action will be furious, and props and the game and all the fun will really start to kick in. Let's look at the game itself. These are two teams that, when you think about Seattle, played in a really tough division. I think going into the season, everybody was so high in the 49ers and the Rams, and even the Cardinals to some degree. That Seattle now getting a new quarterback in Darnold, trading Geno Smith to the Raiders, was kind of that forgotten team in the NFC West. So they were at 100-1 in September when the season started. On the flip side, the Patriots played in the same division with the Bills, who many people thought would be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. And the Patriots, guess what? They lost week one at home to who else but our Las Vegas Raiders. They were 150-1 at that point. So these are two teams that it was so chalky last year, and toward the end of the season and going into the playoffs in Super Bowl, it was all the favorites. These are kind of two surprise teams. Although the Patriots were number 2 seed in the AFC and the Seahawks number 1 in the NFC, it's not two teams that most people expected to be playing in February.
Yeah, as we were walking into the NFL season, week 1, week 2, these were not two teams that we anticipated would be playing on the final Sunday in February. But as we moved later and later in the year, at least on the Seattle side of things, there started to be that rumblings of Seattle's the team, this defense is for real. And then once they were able to kind of overtake the Rams, and then obviously that big win against San Francisco in week 18, which earned them that number 1 seed in the NFC, that became a big deal, because now you had to beat somebody in Seattle and that 12th man,
right,
and that defense and what they had going. And then obviously, what happened kind of to the Eagles, the Niners being banged up, and then obviously the big wins over the Rams, which we talked about were the NFC favorite and essentially the Super Bowl favorite almost all year long. In the AFC, the Broncos earned that number 1 seed, kind of, doing it with a shell game and mirrors of all those comeback wins that they had. And the Patriots finished the 2 seed, but it was the shock of the fact that we didn't have the Chiefs, we didn't have the Ravens, we didn't have these teams that were there. So it is a monster surprise as we sit where we're at today. And as those conference championship games were kicking off, this matchup was expected to be Seattle about a 3.5-point favorite over the Patriots. And then the Patriots kind of offensive struggles kind of throughout the playoffs, but then obviously in the snowstorm in Denver, combined with the way the Seahawks looked against the Rams, made some big plays, the big fumble by the Rams special teams, opened up the Super Bowl with Seattle being that 4.5-point favorite. We've seen that line go up to 5. And of course we're back down at 4.5. You could still find 5s around the valley, around the United States. There are some 5s available, but the consensus number is 4.5. And by the way we've been trading here at Station Casinos, I think 67% of our ticket count is on the Seahawks laying the 4.5. We have taken 2 big bets, 6-figure bets on the Patriots, one of those +5, one of those +4.5. So I feel very solid as we sit today, despite the fact that we're 67% of the tickets on the point spread on the Seahawks, 61% of the tickets on the money line on the Seahawks. I feel the 4.5 is very solid, and the -235 on the money line, +195 on the Patriots is very solid. And I don't see us moving one way or another off of any accumulation. It's going to take a monster bet to push us one way or another.
Well, we've only seen kind of a fraction of the handle so far. I think, in the 72 hours leading up until game time, and then on Sunday, February 8th, we'll probably see about 80% of the overall handle come in. I think what's interesting is that you're right, the 2 larger bets have come in on the Patriots, but when you look at the kind of masses right now, those bets have been on the Seahawks so far. So it kind of creates kind of an interesting dynamic now. Which way are the bettors actually going to push us as we get closer and closer to game time? On the flip side, the total. These two teams both kind of top 10 defensively. You touched on how good Seattle's defense has been. That Patriots defense is top 10 as well. They've only averaged 18 points a game in their 3 postseason games, yet they're, of course, playing in February right now. So that says something about their defense. I think you look at these two teams, the total opened up at 46.5. It's down to 45.5. Our two largest bets were on the under, but we did take a large bet today on the over as well. We know there's some 45s out there. Kind of curious to see where this game ultimately gets pushed to. We know the public and you guys like overs in the Super Bowl. You want scoring and action. It's great for all the same game parlays and all the props overall. But these two teams are really more defensive minded than anything else. You've got a young quarterback in Drake May. You've got a quarterback in Sam Darnold, who last year really did not play well in the postseason or toward the end of the year, and he can become only the second quarterback to lead the league in turnovers to win the Super Bowl. Eli Manning did that, I believe, in 2007 as well. So this could be a kicker game where the kickers really become really valuable right now. But I'm really curious to see which way this total gets driven. I think you look at a lot of the props early on, and the money has been on the under. I know as we get closer to kickoff and everybody's kind of in the room and you want to see that scoring, I know the masses will play a lot of the over stuff, but there has been some sharp money that has come in so far and a lot of the unders on the props.
Yeah, you talked about opening 46.5. As we sit today, we still have 72% of the tickets being bet on the over.
But wouldn't you say that it's a little bit kind of Joe's versus pros, if we define that, where the sophisticated or sharp money has been on the under with the larger wagers, but the public or the masses or our guests have really favored the over so far?
Yeah, two big bets, one under 46.5 and one under 46, that have us currently sitting at our 45.5. But again, all that public money, all the ticket count, 72% has been on the over, which is a shock to me. I'm sure, but again, when you get to this
type of game,
this final game of the season, where late in that game, are you going for it on fourth down from your own 15-yard line? Are you pulling out all the stops? Obviously everybody's trying to do everything to score points, but when I look through the last 8 games of the season for the Seattle Seahawks, and obviously they played the Rams twice in those last 8 games, one time allowing them to score 37 points, and then obviously in the NFC Championship allowing the Rams to score 27 points. If you take those 2 games against the Rams, the last 6 games of the season for the Seahawks, they've allowed their opponents 7.3 points a game. And if you include the 2 games against the Rams, their defense is only allowing 13.5 points per game. 13.5 points per game over the last 8 games the Seahawks have played.
And that's still 5 points less than what the Patriots have averaged in the postseason.
Well, let me get to the Patriots. The Patriots' last 8 games of the season, again, they allowed Buffalo to score 35 against them. They allowed Baltimore to score 24 against them. But those last 8 games of the season, with all the other things, they're allowing 14.5 points per game. So these defenses have found something. Seattle 13.5, the Patriots 14.5. That gets us a total of 28 if I add those up, and we're sitting at a total of 46. So we've got 2 defenses in my mind that are playing absolutely fantastic football. We've got 2 defensive-minded head coaches in Vrabel and McDonald. We've got a young quarterback in May, an experienced quarterback in Darnold, but again, he's a little bit
pressure on him.
He's a little bit younger in the amount of games that he's played due to kind of sitting out some years.
Right.
That I just can see this as a defensive game. However, we do have some big play receivers on both sides that can make big plays downfield. We've got big play running backs in Walker, Henderson, that can break free and have a 70-yard touchdown. So there's always that thing that could happen. But when I look, again, 8 weeks, Seattle has allowed 13.5 points on average, and the last 8 weeks for the Patriots, 14.5 points on average. I'm surprised that we're seeing 72% of the tickets on the over 45.5.
That's why I really think it is that kind of Joe's versus pros right now. And I think you look at New England, they didn't have to score a lot of points in the postseason. That game against the Chargers really was a banged-up Charger team that they played. They then played the Texans, and guess what? No Nico Collins in that game. And then the Broncos, although on the road, no Bo Nix. Instead of who didn't play at all this year, only had appeared in 20 games in his entire career. So you were going up against, I'm not going to say inferior, but not the top end guys on those teams that they played. So
yeah, looking back there though, I think, don't quote me on the numbers, but I think they sacked Justin Herbert 7 or 8 times in that wild card week. I know that they intercepted Stroud 4 times in the divisional championship week. So the defense has been flying around. They've been causing turnovers. And obviously, as we look at Sam Darnold, he's a guy that we have seen that 4 interception game. We have seen the ability for him to be sacked and fumble the football. So some of the things that the Patriots have been doing over these last several weeks are things that they want to continue to do to a potentially turnover prone Seattle offense.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive into it a little bit deeper a little bit. So we think when you look at the game, how much of this game is going to come down to coaching? As you mentioned, both coaches defensive-minded. Vrabel is a 3-time Super Bowl winner.
As a player.
As a player, right. So McDonald on the other side doesn't have that pedigree in him. Vrabel knows what it takes. He's with that team that he got there with and won it. But Seattle's defense has been lights out all year. I think you can make a case that offensive-wise, Seattle has maybe the bigger playmakers in JSN and Cooper Kupp and Kenny Walker. Although collectively as a group, Drake May and that young group of quarterbacks or wide receivers has been really good, and they have a two-headed monster at running back. But kind of an interesting dynamic that Vrabel kind of can address his team. I've been there, done that, relax. This is what to expect from the coaching side.
Yeah, if we were putting boxes side by side, and we're going to evaluate coaching, and we're going to say who has the edge in coaching, I'm gonna check the box for the New England Patriots.
Right.
You talk about Vrabel, 14 years as a player, 3-time Super Bowl champion, goes to Ohio State with his first chance to coach, then coaches the Texans, has 6 years with the Tennessee Titans, takes them to the playoffs 3 times, some success there, gets let go by Tennessee, ends up being a consultant for the Cleveland Browns last year, and then his first year with the New England Patriots, vaults this team unexpectedly to now be sitting in the Super Bowl. But Mike Vrabel's had success as a player, and he's one of those guys, again, from the Belichick era that finds those little holes in the things that happen, finds the little tweaks with penalties and those type of things. Vrabel, for me, even in Tennessee, and we got let go as Tennessee, was one of those guys that was a top 5 coach in the National Football League. I think he's an absolute exceptional coach, and there's no surprise to me that he's back in the Super Bowl here as a head coach. Mike McDonald, 38 years old, never played in the National Football League. I think he blew out his ACL probably late in high school. Went to Georgia for college, signed on with Kirby Smart as a graduate assistant there. Went to then the Baltimore Ravens, cut his teeth in Baltimore as a defensive guy, a lot of different positions there. Goes with Jim as a defensive coordinator in Michigan in the college ranks. Gets his first defensive coordinator job. Then Baltimore lures him back in 2022 to take the Ravens defensive coordinator job. Obviously, he does a fantastic job there. And in 2024, the Seattle Seahawks takes over as their head coach. Only his second year with the Seahawks. He's done an outstanding job. But again, I'm going to check Mark Vrabel just for all of those years as a head coach, all of those years as a player, and his Super Bowl experience, not only to be able to talk to his players about it as a coach, but to be able to talk to his players as a player, especially with the young guys that he has there in New England. It's a very, very young team. There's going to be a lot to go on Vrabel. And again, his game day adjustments, both these guys' game day adjustments has been fantastic. But again, 2 defensive head coaches that I look for a low-scoring matchup, not for these guys to be throwing the ball all around on the offensive side of the football.
Well, that's what makes the game so great, because a lot of it could be dictated by game script. If one of the 2 teams gets off to an early lead or a 2-touchdown score lead, you can see maybe that script changing a little bit. So one of the questions that was posed to is, who is there more pressure on in this game, Drake May or Sam Darnold? For me, it's a really easy question. I think it's Sam Darnold. Drake May is a very young quarterback. It's his second year. He was a high draft pick, but you've got Vrabel there. He's got a real chance to win the MVP this year. But I think you look at Darnold, the amount of teams that he's played with. He's been a starter. He's been a backup. Of course, that famous quote on primetime, I'm seeing ghosts, the struggles that he had last year in Minnesota, although Minnesota wishes, I'm sure, that they had him back this year. I think there's a lot more pressure on Sam Darnold. I think that Drake May can go into this game a little bit looser, can relax a bit. A lot more pressure on Darnold being the number 1 team, or number 1 seed in the NFC. Their familiarity with the stadium in Santa Clara, they play there every year. I think for me, it's Darnold, much more pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold was the number 3 pick in the 2018 draft by the New York Jets behind Mayfield and Barkley. Started 38 games with the Jets, got traded to Carolina, started 17 games with Carolina, gets shipped to San Francisco, where he's a backup to Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. Looks like his chances to start in the NFL have gone by the wayside. finds his way to Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell reestablishes him. I would actually say Kyle Shanahan, in his year as a backup to Purdy, gave the tutelage to Darnold to put in his toolkit, in his belt, that he then went to Minnesota and had success. Obviously, the Vikings are questioning themselves right now why they let 14-3 Sam Darnold get away and go to the Seahawks. He has another great year.
They let Daniel Jones walk out of the building.
Another great year with
story,
Seattle, and he seems to have overcome some demons with these wins over the Rams. Drake May, I don't know where there's any pressure on Drake May.
Right.
Number 3 pick in the 2024 draft behind Caleb Williams, Jalen Daniels, doesn't know anything other than his first season and then an incredible season here. I think he's playing free pressure, no history of not playing well. So all the pressure for me here is on Sam Darnold. But I will reverse this question and say that for me, all the pressure is on Sam Darnold, but I think the game is a Drake May game. If the New England Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl, Drake May has to go win the Super Bowl. He's got to be Drake May. He's got to put the Superman cape on. He's got to run the football. He's got to create and make the plays downfield, where I feel like Sam Darnold can be a game manager, hand the ball off to Walker, find his tight ends, sprinkle in the Jigma, use that defense to suffocate the Patriots, and the Seahawks can find a way to win. If the Patriots are going to win, it is squarely going to be on the shoulders of Drake May. He's got to go have an absolutely awesome game.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. I think there's a lot of pressure on Darnold, though, with that, too. Because of the amount of turnovers that he's had this year, because of the struggles he had in the postseason last year. If he does throw an interception early or fumble early, or he has a couple of turnovers early, I think it's going to change the entire complexion of that game. I think because of what he's gone through so far, as you mentioned, being the 3rd overall pick, I'm seeing Ghost on national TV, the amount of teams that he's changed with. He probably would still be in Minnesota if he didn't struggle so poorly at the end of last season. I mean, he really played bad toward the end of the season and in the postseason. I think there's just so much pressure on this guy. I agree, he could be a game manager, but at some point, he's going to be asked to make that big play, to scramble out of the pocket. And New England's defense is opportunistic. They have a defensive-minded coach. I think he's got to play within himself, and if he creates that big turnover, I think it changes the entire complexion of the game.
Yeah, I mean, outside of outlying circumstances of defensive, plays, special teams plays, the game doesn't go to script. You talked about somebody jumps out to a 2-touchdown lead. It's going to take everything off the script. Game stays to script. I think Seattle will be less aggressive, more conservative in their play calling, and the underdog role of the Patriots is going to force them into a little bit more of an aggressive play calling, where Drake May will have to come out and win this game for the Patriots.
I think with everything you just said, when I look at one of the questions here is like, who could possibly be the most impactful players in the game, I think there's a real chance that it's the kickers for both teams. That this could be a game where you've got a very young Patriot team with Drake May. You've got Darnold, who has had the propensity to turn the ball over a little bit. Maybe they're both a little bit more kind of conservative and it's a slow start. I think these kickers could be a real impact of who maybe gets off that early lead and kind of dictates pace a bit.
I'm a big fan of the kickers in this game. I said one of my favorite props is both guys to make over a 35-yard field goal. I think the kickers will play a big part in this game. We talked about the defenses cracking down, kind of that under 17 points allowed per game, 13.5 and 14.5. We have no Zach Charbonnet, who's been the goal line back for the Seattle Seahawks all year long. So they don't have him in the red zone. We've seen the Patriots struggle in the red zone here throughout the playoffs. I think we could see conservative coaches not going forward on those 4th and shorts once they get into the red zone, and we see a lot of field goals being settled.
Live by the sword, meaning they live by their defense. Both these defenses kind of have dictated how good these offenses are by change of field position, making that big play, a defensive score. They both hit you and they come to play. So I think with that said, that could be the case.
Go back, because the question was phrased, who is the players that could make an impact on the game? And you had said the kickers could make an impact.
I have one more too, but go ahead.
I had written down, it's a combination for me. I think the most impactful players of the game, are going to have to be Christian Gonzalez or Carlton Davis, and those two guys are the cornerbacks for the New England Patriots. Jackson Smith-Njigba accounts for 44% of the receiving yards for the Seattle Seahawks. That is the highest percentage of a receiver going into a Super Bowl for their team since 1971. So you don't see teams that are normally this heavily reliant on one receiver make this stratosphere of a game. So the Seattle Seahawks rely on him for 44% of their receiving yards. So for me, it's Carlton Davis or Christian Gonzalez. Those are the two cornerbacks for the Patriots. They have got to find a way to suffocate and control Jackson Smith-Njigba. And again, we talk about Mike Vrabel. If there's one thing in this game, who's the guy you're not going to let beat you
JSN.
On that Seattle side? He's got to choose the two evils of, am I stopping Kenneth Walker, am I stopping Jackson Smith-Njigba? The New England secondary is a strength of their team. They are very, very good. They've got two very good safeties, three very, very good cornerbacks. But I look to these two guys, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis. Can they find a way to control Smith-Njigba to allow the Patriots enough time to hang around and steal this game?
It's funny you say that, because one of the questions too is who could possibly be a sneaky kind of impact player to the game or MVP. And with that thought process in mind, I went with Cooper Kupp, because if JSN is getting all that attention, Cooper Kupp's been there. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He's a very talented wideout. He makes everybody in your offense better. There's been rumblings about him possibly throwing the ball in the game, that he's been shown in practice doing that. I think Cooper Kupp is kind of that guy at 100-1 to be MVP, that maybe because of the attention that JSN might get, he might be a guy that could have a big game.
Talk about the guy that can change this game, a big play guy, maybe unexpected guy that's name's going to show up. I wrote down Rashid.
Right?
Rashid Shaheed. He was brought over after Week 10 from the New Orleans Saints. Plays kind of that third, fourth receiver role for the Seahawks. But most importantly, he's their punt returner and he's their kick returner. And he made an impact play against the Niners with the opening 95-yard kickoff return. In the big comeback win in Week 15 against the Rams, he had a 58-yard punt return. I think this past week for Seattle, he had a 51-yard reception in that game. He's not a guy that they use a bunch, but if we're talking about a special teams play that is going to flip this game and change the course of the game, Rashid Shaheed, look out for him to make a big play.
I'm going to give you guys some kind of betting tidbits with this. So Seattle 9-0 straight up their last 9 games. Seattle, historically, the last 12 times they've played the Patriots, 8-3-1 against the number. The total has gone over 6 of New England's last 8 games, but really interesting stat here is the total has gone over 7 of the last 7 games that New England and Seattle have played. So I know that's historically, it's not necessarily based on these two teams, but they have a history that when these two teams play, there's a lot of scoring in the game.
One of the things I wrote down just from a pro football focus, a lot of times you're watching that crawl on ESPN and it talks about players in the game and their ranking and their pro football focus ranking. And as the 2025 season concluded, no question that the Seattle Seahawks are sitting here in the Super Bowl as the 4.5-point favorite because of their players. And I wrote it down because I was shocked. Everybody knows Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is the number 2 wide receiver in the National Football League behind Puka Nacua, according to Pro Football Focus. So again, number 2 wide receiver, no surprise that you're in the big game here with the number 2 wide receiver. But maybe you didn't know, the number 1 running back, according to Pro Football Focus in the National Football League, is Kenneth Walker. It's not Bijan Robinson, it's not Saquon Barkley, it's not King Henry.
But it's not based on just touchdowns.
It's
based
everything
on everything
they do in the game. And again, they lost Zach Charbonnet. But number 1 running back, Kenneth Walker. Number 2 wide receiver, Smith-Njigba. The number 1 cornerback in the National Football League, Devin Witherspoon, quarterback for Seattle. The number 3 safety in the National Football League, Julian Love for the Seattle Seahawks. So Seattle has those special players, those special guys
on both sides of the ball
that are making a difference. You have 2 on offense, 2 on defense. The secondary for Seattle is absolutely fantastic. The line for Seattle is fantastic. But on the flip side, the secondary for the Patriots is fantastic. Their defensive line is solid. If you're talking about two kind of holes in this game, if we had to talk about the two weakest units in this game, we would be talking about the New England Patriots offensive line and the Seattle Seahawks offensive line.
Right.
And so again, talking about a game where everyone's betting the over, you would think that the offensive lines would be protecting these quarterbacks a little bit better, but it's the defensive line strength on both sides of the football to potentially get after these quarterbacks. Again, I think we're looking at a conservative, low-scoring football
Agreed.
game,
Yep.
and I'll be shocked if the total doesn't come down. I think that we're looking for another big bet here, under 45.5, potentially taking us to 45. Doesn't mean we saw a low-scoring game last year between the Eagles and Chiefs for about a half, and then the game absolutely exploded and flipped on a switch, and we saw touchdowns flying all over the place. So anytime you're cheering for an under, you're only cheering for so long before the craziness happens. But for me, in watching the props and building the props, in looking at the game, it feels like a conservative, lower scoring football game.
Yeah, and that could easily be game script, I think. But, with these two defenses, and with Shaheed that you talked about, a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown, can kind of change that and open things up so much more.
All those things that
I
none of the bookmakers in Las Vegas want to hear. No safeties, no overtimes, no defensive touchdowns, no 2-point conversions, no missed field goals, no extra points, nothing that takes us off game script. Let's make it a solid, clean game. No safeties, and we'll all go home safely on Sunday night.
When you talk about the props too, one of the fun props that's really drawing a lot of attention is these two teams played in a previous Super Bowl in 2015. Patriots won the game 28-24. Seattle was able to drive down in the closing seconds of the game, get to the 1-yard line, and they happened to have a guy who had a kind of a cool nickname called Beast Mode in the backfield. And they chose not to give him the ball from the 1, but throw. It was intercepted right in the end zone or at the 1-yard line. So a prop that we have up right now is will Seattle complete a pass?
Will Seattle attempt a pass from on or inside the 1-yard line? Again,
the New England's 1-yard line. Yep.
To go for it. And we'll see if McDonald has the stones to throw from the 1-yard line the way that Seattle did so many years ago.
I've had so many Seahawk fans tell me, I hate that prop. And Patriot fans say, I love that prop. So, guys, again, there are so many ways to bet the game. As Jay touched on earlier, over 1,300 ways to bet the game on the app. If you haven't signed up for SDN Sports, great time to do it. We love when you guys come out. We're a little bit biased. I guess if you can't make it here, I guess you could go to Santa Clara, as Jay said last week, but just the atmosphere, the action, the hype, the guest service that you're going to get here, it's second to none. It's so much fun being here. You don't have to be a big bettor. A lot of small bettors have a great time. You could be a big bettor, have a great time as well, but it's really the drink specials, the great restaurants, all brand new bathrooms that have been remodeled. It's just going to be a great weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun, come on out.
You talked about the 1,300 props that are on the app. And again, whether you have the app or whether you're going to come in and join us in person, it's simple, it's easy to play. Play on the app, go through the props, look for what you want to do, make your play. If you don't have the app, you're crazy. Makes it so much simpler. You got a $50 no-worry wager waiting for you for first-time signups on the app. But if you can't get the app, it's still going to be very, very convenient to come into any of our sports books, any of our kiosks. The kiosks are all open, available. They have all those props. Download them as well. We got our over-the-counter wagers going to be fully,
and the app 24/7,
fully staffed, ready to go. Writers that are waiting for you to come in to make those bets. Patient with you. Don't feel intimidated. Come to the counter. Ask the questions that you feel like you need to ask to be comfortable to make the bets. And Chucky talked about it. We've got a 30-plus page packet when you get here that you can comb through and walk through. But again, have some fun with it. Enjoy the big game. Enjoy betting the props. We feel lucky to see you and join us with our big giant screens at all of our books. Everybody's prepared for you to come in and enjoy the game no matter which side you're looking to bet.
As Jay said, get here early, have fun, enjoy it, stay within your means, and we're looking forward to it.
And the wagering doesn't stop when kickoff stops. We've got live wagering on the app throughout the game, live wagering during commercial breaks in person, at the counter, at the kiosk. So if you don't get here in time for the game, but you get You get a seat, you get a cocktail, get a $1.99 margarita, then jump into the wagering with the live wagering that goes on throughout the game.
As you can see from the smiles on our faces, we're not excited at all. We're not looking forward to it. We can't wait to see you guys. We are excited. It's always a fun time for us. The whole season kind of comes down to this big game. We're the focal point of the Racing Sportsbook, and it's just fun. Just the atmosphere, the craziness. You can be here rooting with or against 400 or 500 of your closest friends, which makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're not a Seattle fan or a Patriots fan, next year's Super Bowl is already up. Go ahead and take a shot and take your team next year's Super Bowl.
You don't have to be a fan because of the props.
Maybe you can find a 50 or 100 to 1 like the Seahawks or the Patriots to get to next year's big game.
Yep, sounds great. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports, and of course John behind the camera. I want to say thanks, you guys. Good luck, have fun, and we look forward to seeing you guys this weekend.